Tonight, let your room be a gentle harbor. You can let your shoulders drop a little as you settle into that harbor. Feel the sheet or blanket against your skin. Notice the small sounds of the house breathing around you. In the hush that follows, we will wander through some of the softest discoveries of the mind. Psychology facts that, when taken like small lanterns, can help you drift. These are not promises or prescriptions. They are simple observations about how minds tend to behave, offered so you can choose a quiet experiment for yourself. If you like this calm focus, a gentle like and subscribe helps us keep sharing these nights. Think of your attention as a lantern you can set down beside the bed. Tonight we will set it down often, and in the dim light you may notice things anew. How a scent brings back a room you haven't seen in years. How a simple change in posture breathes differently into your chest. How a single breath can steady a wandering thought. I will speak in a slow, kindly way, a scientist who likes soft metaphors, and a bedside storyteller who trusts the power of small habits. Not every idea will fit every life. Take what resonates. Leave the rest like fallen leaves outside the door. Scent has a remarkable way of folding time. Studies suggest that smells are often tightly woven to memory and emotion. The olfactory system shares a secret passage with the regions of the brain that store autobiographical recollections and emotions. Imagine a box of cedar-scented photographs. A whiff and a moment from childhood might arrive as clearly as a fox at dusk. In practical terms, placing a familiar, calming scent, lavender, a soft citrus, or a cloth that carries a gentle personal fragrance, near your pillow can act like a quiet cue that your brain learns to associate with rest. Try this. Choose a scent that feels warm but neutral. Spritz or place it on a fabric 2 or 3 times a week so it keeps its specialness. Let that scent be an anchor. When your mind drifts to the day's tasks, notice how the smell steadies you, like a small hand at the back of the head guiding you toward the present hush. Music and sound shape mood in subtle, often surprising ways. Research shows that slow, predictable rhythms and soft harmonic textures can reduce physiological arousal, heart rate, breathing pace, the tiny muscle tensions that tally up over a day. You have likely felt this, a lullaby's cadence working like a tide, pulling the shore of your consciousness toward calm. For sleep, select tracks that are consistent and low in sudden change. Instrumental pieces, gentle piano, or ambient textures without abrupt crescendos are often the kindest companions. Keep the volume low. Let the sound be more a posture than a proclamation, and let it live at the edge of your awareness.
If your room is quiet already, a single steady sound like a fan or white noise loop can perform the same soft engineering. It organizes stray sounds into something predictable, and predictability quiets the alert parts of the brain. Taste and smell are less separate than we usually think. One study after another points out how the flavor experience depends on olfactory cues as much as on taste buds. That link is useful for evenings. A small, non-stimulating flavor at the end of the day, a mild herbal tea, a hint of warm milk, a touch of chamomile, paired with a restful visual routine, can serve as a closing ritual. The brain likes patterns. When you consistently pair a gentle flavor with the act of winding down, dimming lights, soft music, a chair or bed arranged just so, the flavor becomes a subtle signal that the day is finished and the night is beginning. Be careful not to rely on stimulants close to bedtime. Choose flavors associated with gentleness and routine, and let that ritual repeat enough times that the brain recognizes the pattern without needing instructions. Ambient scent and the overall atmosphere of a room quietly inform how safely you can relax. Studies investigating scent priming find that even weak, familiar smells can bias mood and behavior without you noticing them explicitly. Picture an evening where the room carries a faint trace of a place you love, a rainy street, the kitchen after bread, an herb garden, and how your chest softens as if someone had eased your shoulders. For sleep, the aim is not dramatic aromatherapy, but consistent low-intensity cues. Place a small sachet, a diffuser on a low setting, or a pillow spray you only use at night. Over time, your brain will learn that this particular gentle aroma often appears alongside lowering lights and a slow breath, and that association alone can nudge the mind to rest. Now, let your breath be a lantern for a moment. Breathe in slowly through your nose, counting softly to 3. Breathe out like a tide, counting to 4.
Feel the weight of your shoulders, the tiny contact points of your body with the bed, the soft hush behind your ears. Notice the way each exhale loosens a thread of thought. Let the breath be the small, steady thing that brings you back when your mind wanders. Touch is a quiet language the body speaks to itself and others. Researchers have shown that gentle human touch lowers stress hormones, reduces heart rate, and can signal safety in a way words often cannot. Even non-social touch, the simple pressure of a weighted blanket, a soft pillow tucked under a knee, the gentle pressure of your own hands on your abdomen can provide feedback that settles the nervous system. Try this tonight. Bring one hand to your belly, the other to your chest, and notice the slow rise and fall. No need to act, no need to judge, just notice the rhythm. That small contact can read to your brain like an assurance that the body is safe enough to rest.
Our bodies talk back to the mind through posture. The field of embodied cognition notes that the way we hold ourselves can color our emotional states. A slumped posture tends to host fatigue and low energy, while a light, open posture invites a slightly different horizon of feeling. For sleep, the idea isn't to sit erect, but to arrange a posture that invites surrender. Support at the knees, a pillow under the neck that feels like a gentle hand, a softness under the lower back. Adjust slowly and notice how your breathing changes. These micro-adjustments teach the brain where to expect rest. They are small signals, repeated nightly, that can coax the mind into a quieter loop. Mirroring, the way people subtly copy one another's facial expressions and movements, is more than social mimicry. It is a mechanism of empathy and calm. If you spend the evening with a calm companion, or even watch a soft, unhurried video, the mirror neurons that help us sync up with others may ease your tension by aligning your internal tempo with a slower one. In solitary moments, you can mirror yourself. Soften your face, unclench your jaw, allow the corners of your mouth to ease. The face holds many of the day's tensions. Releasing it slightly gives the rest of your system permission to follow. Stress spreads quietly, like water seeping through cloth. Research into stress contagion finds that people unknowingly pass on tension through micro-expressions, tone of voice, and restless movements. Recognizing this can be empowering. If an argument or an anxious conversation snagged in your mind, imagine laying it on a table and stepping back. You cannot always change what others carry, but you can choose a ritual to interrupt the spread. A warm washcloth at the temples, a brief hand-on-chest recognition, or a 2-minute breathing pause that signals to your nervous system that it's safe to stop transmitting alarm. Take a slow, attentive breath. Let the air travel down into your belly and linger like a lantern for a second before it returns. As you exhale, imagine the day's edges softening, like chalk smudging on a board. Memory moves with curious rules that sometimes comfort and sometimes surprise. One of the most familiar is the primacy and recency effect. We tend to remember the first things and the last things we encounter better than the middle. The brain seems to treat beginnings and endings as bookmarks. Practically, this suggests a small nighttime trick. If you want to seal something soothing in your mind, a gratitude, a calming image, a short affirmation, place it at the end of an evening routine. The mind gives the edges a little more weight, so a brief, kind thought at the close of your day is more likely to carry into sleep than a long list spoken earlier. Spacing is another generous rule of learning. Studies on spaced repetition show that honeyed, repeated exposure over time makes memories more durable than a single long effort.
The same principle applies to restful habits. Short, repeated rituals beat elaborate, infrequent ceremonies. If you practice a 2-minute breathing habit each night for a week, your brain begins to recognize the pattern and prepares itself more readily than if you wait for a rare, perfect evening. Think of these tiny repetitions as laying down stepping stones across a slow river. Each one eases the crossing. Teaching deepens learning in a remarkably human way. Work in cognitive science suggests that explaining a concept to someone else, even to an imagined person, sharpens your memory for it. This can be used gently for sleep. If a simple calming phrase or image helps you, restate it softly to yourself before sleep as if telling a friend. "May I rest tonight," you might say, or The day is done. The room is safe. That act of gentle articulation reinforces the thought's place in your mind, making it more readily available as a soft thread when you slip into sleep. Handwriting, too, carries a different quality than typing. Studies comparing handwritten notes to typed ones often find that the slower pace of writing deepens encoding. There is a tactile intimacy to putting pen to paper that seems to slow thought and allow reflection. Consider ending your day with a brief handwritten line, a single sentence of gratitude, a note of what went well, a sketch of a peaceful scene. The physical motion of writing can be like a slow exhale for the mind, deliberate, contained, and with a satisfying closure that a blinking cursor on a screen rarely gives. Reconsolidation is an intriguing memory process. When you recall a memory, it becomes pliable and can be updated. Research shows that revisiting a memory can sometimes let you soften its sting or reframe its meaning, especially if you do so in a calm state. For sleep, this offers a gentle practice. If a worry tends to revisit itself at night, try briefly recalling the worry in a neutral tone, then counterweighting it with a calming fact or a small concrete action you can do in the morning. The aim is not to suppress, but to gently recontextualize, to tell the memory a slower story before you let it rest. Let your breath be that lantern again. Inhale with the thought, "This moment is only this one," and exhale with a soft, "I can return tomorrow." Feel how that soft rhythm gives a tiny safety to the mind, like a lullaby that repeats a comforting line. Perception is both faithful and inventive. Change blindness, the mind's tendency to miss gradual or unexpected changes in a visual scene, reminds us that our perception is not a perfect recording, but a selective narrative. That selectivity can be comforting. The brain filters, simplifies, and often hides the clutter it decides is irrelevant. For sleep, the lesson is liberating. You do not need to notice every small disturbance to rest well. The brain will choose what to attend to. You can guide it toward gentle things.
Dim the lights, soften sharp contrasts, and let the visual field become forgiving. A darker room with a single warm light or diffuse lamps creates an environment where the brain doesn't have to labor to reconcile edges. Optical illusions are not tricks meant to embarrass you. They are invitations to marvel at how the brain stitches a coherent world out of ambiguous pieces. That marvel can be calming when used as a bedside curiosity. Consider looking at a slowly shifting pattern or a slowly moving mobile. Let your attention be mildly curious rather than analytic. Curiosity without urgency is a restful posture. A little wonder, allowed to hover without demand, can loosen the tightening grip of performance-focused thoughts. The spotlight effect, our tendency to overestimate how much others notice our flaws or oddities, is a generous relief when you realize it. Research shows people are usually far less observed than they fear. Bring that finding to your bedside. If you worry about social slights replaying in your head, remind yourself that most observers are occupied with their own lanterns. Let the realization act like a soft exhale. The world is kindlier in its inattentiveness than your inner critic would have you believe. Now, settle in for a short breathing passage designed to let these ideas sink. Close your eyes if that feels good. Take a slow inhale for 3 counts. Feel the air as a soft tide rising under your ribs. Hold the breath for a second, like a quiet hush, and then exhale for 4 counts, noticing a subtle loosening at the base of your skull. Repeat this 3 times, each time imagining the lungs as a gentle bellows that pushes out the day's noise. As you do, let your jaw soften, the tiny muscles around your eyes release, and the soles of your feet sink heavier into the mattress. Let your breath be a lighthouse, steady, patient, and quietly luminous. Some facts about sleep itself are gentle paradoxes. Placebo sleep, for instance, describes the finding that if people believe they have slept better, their cognitive performance sometimes follows suit, even when objective measures don't align perfectly. This is not to suggest that subjective feeling trumps biology. Rather, it opens a human door. How you interpret your rest influences how rested you feel. Small rituals that convince your mind that sleep was restful, a tidy bedside table, a worn favorite pillowcase, a short post-sleep note of gratitude, may tip your subjective experience toward calm. The key is subtlety. We're aiming for quiet signals rather than dramatic staging. Sleep is also a time when insight often appears. Many people report solving small problems in the half-dream state or waking with a tidy thought that eluded them the day before. Research on sleep and memory suggests that the brain reprocesses information during rest, sometimes reorganizing fragments into new patterns. If you have a naughty but non-urgent thought, letting it rest near sleep can paradoxically help. Try placing a notepad by the bed, and before you close your eyes, jot 1 or 2 words summarizing the issue. That tiny act can allow the mind to put the problem in a safe box and return to it later. Often the brain will rearrange the pieces while you sleep. Sleep deprivation reshapes cognition in ways both broad and subtle. Short-term deprivation tends to impair attention and increase emotional reactivity. Longer stretches without adequate rest can influence memory consolidation and mood regulation. It's important to acknowledge these effects compassionately. If poor sleep has been a pattern, small habits may help, but persistent disturbances deserve professional attention. For tonight, the practical route is modest. Emphasize consistency over perfection, and favor gentle, repeatable cues that invite the mind toward rest rather than racing for an immediate fix. Lucid dreaming sits at a curious intersection of control and surrender. Some people train themselves to become aware within dreams and gently steer the dream's content. Others experience lucid episodes spontaneously. The evidence around lucid dreaming suggests it can be cultivated through gentle practices like dream journaling, reality checks, and intention setting before sleep. If this intrigues you, treat it as a soft curiosity rather than a task. Keep a small notebook near the bed and, without pressure, note any dream remnants upon waking. The notebook needn't be polished. It is a tiny mirror that tells the brain dreams matter. Over time, that attention can increase the chance that lucidity visits, but there is no rush. The aim here is wonder, not performance. Let your breath be a lantern and carry us forward. Inhale, noticing the quiet play of your ribs. Exhale, and imagine the day's edges rounding like river stones. There's a gentle momentum in repetition, repeated breath, repeated ritual, repeated scent, and that momentum often leads the mind to accept rest without argument. At this point in the evening, you might notice some images drifting up, a patch of sunlight from childhood, the feel of a friend's laugh, or simply the small inventory of tasks left undone. These images are normal. They are the mind making sense of its day. One helpful soft exercise is to give each thought a small name and let it float away. Labeling a thought reduces its emotional charge. Call a worry grocer's list or a replayed conversation rehearsal, and watch how naming seems to lighten the mental load. This is a small cognitive trick that studies of emotion regulation often find useful. Naming moods reduces their intensity. Use it as a bedside habit if you like, quietly labeling a stray thought and letting it move toward the periphery. We are approaching a seam in our journey.
There are more discoveries ahead. The brain's surprising ability to predict choices before conscious awareness, the curious phenomena of synesthesia, and other gentle wonders that can invite awe without alertness. But for now, rest in the slow accumulation of what we've touched: scent, sound, touch, posture, memory's edges. Let these small ideas settle like soft stones in the belly, each one a tiny weight that steadies rather than drags. Take a moment to notice your hands. Feel their temperature, the points of contact against the sheet, the rhythm of blood beneath the skin. Place one hand lightly over your heart if that feels right. Breathe in as if you are drawing warmth into your chest. Exhale as if you are smoothing the brow of a sleeping friend. Let the repetition of the breath be your companion. There is a further thread that we will revisit: how astonishment can be quiet. The mind can be filled with wonder and still be soothed. That paradox is part of what makes the upcoming ideas so gentle. Before we step into the deeper marvels, rest within the small rituals you've chosen. If you keep a scent, let it whisper now. If music is playing, let it be a soft current. If a hand rests on the chest, notice how that contact reads to your nervous system as permission. When you're ready, let your eyes close and imagine a corridor of warm light. Each step along it is a small practice. One step is the breath, one step the scent, one step the posture adjusted just so, one step the soft recollection of something to be grateful for, even a single line.
Feel each step as a mild lowering of the body's alertness, a candle being gently set into a bowl of calm. We will continue this evening's journey into those quieter astonishments and deeper practical rituals. For now, sink a little deeper into the mattress and allow your attention to follow the lantern of your breath. Let the day's sharp edges blur at the corners. Let the room be a harbor, and you the sheltered vessel, drifting patiently toward rest. Some of the mind's quieter marvels move closer now, like tides lifting a boat that has already been loosened from shore. They are strange in a gentle way, discoveries that ask you to marvel, not to hurry. As you sink further into the mattress, let curiosity be soft and unhurried. Let your breath be a lantern again, the same small light that has guided you through scent, touch, posture, and memory, and let it steady you as these subtler truths arrive. One of the most calmly baffling findings is this: under certain conditions, aspects of the brain's activity seem to anticipate a choice before you become consciously aware of deciding. Laboratory studies using brain imaging and careful timing show patterns that, very slightly, correlate with later reported choices. The effect is not magical. It's a hint that the machinery beneath awareness often begins turning before the spotlight of consciousness arrives.
For sleep, the takeaway is soothing rather than alarming. Your mind is always doing quiet work in the background, rearranging and rehearsing. Sometimes that backstage activity chooses for you and presents the result as a conscious thought. To rest, you can treat the preconscious as a friend doing small chores while you nap. Place a tiny intention before sleep, one word, a short question, and trust that the folds of your brain may keep turning through the night. Try this. Pick a single low-stakes question. What would comfort me tomorrow? Whisper it once and let the brain's nocturnal workshop carry it forward. Imagine the question as a pebble dropped into a slow pool. Ripples form and then quiet, and the surface returns to a gentle mirror. Another gentle marvel is synesthesia, where senses cross in ways that seem poetic. A sound might appear as a color, or a number might hold a taste. For some people, this cross-wiring is constant. For others, glimpses appear under altered states or fatigue. Scientists treat synesthesia as a normal variant of perception that reveals how flexible sensory networks can be. The comforting thought for our night is this: your senses are capable of unexpected softness. When you listen to a low, warm tone, you might imagine a color blooming behind your eyelids. Allowing such harmless play can redirect analytic energy into gentle imagery. If a gentle hum suggests a shade of blue to you, drift with that blue like a curtain. Let it be an unpressured invitation to roam the interior landscape. Out-of-body experiences carry an almost mythic reputation, but research approaches them with quiet curiosity. Under particular conditions of sleep transition, meditation, or even benign neurological shifts, people sometimes report feeling their sense of self as extended beyond the physical border of the body. Scientists study these episodes to understand how the brain constructs the sense of self. For someone easing toward sleep, the lesson is soft. Sense of self is not fixed, it is constructed moment by moment. If the mind sometimes feels distant from the body, you can respond with tenderness rather than alarm. A hand on the chest, a soft recognition of weight in the legs, a whispered acknowledgement, "I am here," can reorient the nervous system gently. Try, too, the exercise of simply noticing contact points, heels, calves, the small contact of elbows with the mattress. These details anchor the sense of presence without needing to fight the curiosity that arises when perception feels strange. There is a calm wonder in how music and rhythm can nudge temporal perception. Slow tempos can dilate time, making moments seem longer and softer. Quick rhythms can thin attention into narrow bands. This matters for sleep because time perception shapes worry. At night, anxious thoughts sometimes magnify duration. A single minute feels endless when the mind is tuned to urgency.
Choose slow, spacious sounds that expand experience in a comfortable way. A piece without tight metronomic insistence invites the internal clock to soften. Imagine each measure of music as a gentle step descending stairs. There is no rush, and each step is counted by breath. Mirror-like processes continue to be quietly useful. We are built to synchronize. Even if you are alone, a brief, deliberate slowing of your movements and expression tends to coax the rest of the nervous system to follow. Before sleep, practice for a few breaths a mirror of calm. Soften your eyes, relax the forehead, drop the jaw an extra fraction. See how the whole body takes a few extra seconds to comply. These seconds are small gifts you give yourself, signals that the evening's tempo has changed. Now a short breath practice to settle further. Inhale for 4 soft counts, feeling the breath travel as a slow finger along the spine. Exhale for 5, releasing the day's small tightness. With each exhale, imagine a faint curtain drawing across the windows of the mind, dimming the bright edges. Repeat this rhythm 3 times. Feel the hands grow heavier at your sides, the shoulders letting go, as if a quiet hand has smoothed them down. There is a cluster of findings about social cognition that can be unexpectedly kind for bedtime. Studies on the spotlight effect tell us that we habitually overestimate how much others are looking at us. When nighttime replay of social moments loops in the mind, remind yourself of this generous truth. Most people are absorbed in their own small scenes, as preoccupied with minor anxieties as you are. The realization is not a dismissal, but a relief. Use it like a gentle balm. When a replay starts, imagine a soft fog rising between you and the imagined observers, muffling details until the scene is washed in gray. The fog does not erase memory, it simply reduces the emotional charge. The bystander effect, the tendency for people to assume someone else will act in a group, has a quieter implication for private worries. You might wonder whether you should have said something, or whether someone else will take care of a problem. In solitude, take small, decisive acts that feel manageable. Set a reminder, write a tiny note, tuck the worry into a specific schedule for the morning. Doing one small, concrete thing can reduce the open-endedness that fuels nighttime rumination. Imagine the act as placing a stone on a stream. The water flows around it and settles. Touch and social warmth extend into subtle rituals that do not require another person. Simple acts, rubbing the calf, tracing the edge of a blanket, pressing the fingertips together, give the nervous system information about safety. Researchers find that the parasympathetic system responds to gentle, sustained touch. Tonight, you might try a brief self-hug, wrap your arms around yourself, tuck the chin, and feel the weight of contact for a few breaths.
Let this contact be an explicit announcement to your system. It's safe to rest. Let's slow for a guided sensory pause. If it feels right, allow your eyes to close. Bring attention to the small map of sensation where your body meets the bed. Heels, calves, backs of arms, shoulder blades. Tilt your attention slowly from one point to the next, like a lantern moved across a dark room. Allow each point to rest in focus for the length of a single breath. As you do this, imagine the sound of a distant bell, not ringing sharp, but hollow and warm, a sound that marks the passage of a moment, then fades. Memory's Land offers more gentle tricks. The concept of forgetting as adaptive is useful tonight. Forgetting is not mere failure. It is the brain's way of pruning what is unnecessary so the essentials grow. When worries linger, consider that some forgetting is a kindness, a biological way of letting go. If a thought keeps returning, imagine setting it on a low shelf labeled "for later" and closing the door. This small metaphor exploits reconsolidation in a non-technical way. By re-encountering a thought in a calm state and then pairing it with a small soothing act, you can sometimes alter how it behaves later. Spacing and variation are also allies. If you have a practice you wish to install, a gratitude note, a 2-minute breathing pattern, a scent used at night, opt for simple repetition rather than elaborate rituals that are hard to maintain. The brain likes predictability and pattern. Over the coming nights, the cost of tiny regular acts will compound into a calming grammar your nervous system recognizes. Think of it as teaching a poem to the part of your brain that listens for safety. A short wonder vignette. Imagine the hippocampus as a librarian in a vast half-lit archive. It does not simply file, it translates. During the day, the librarian collects noisy scraps of experience. By night, the librarian sits by a small lamp and quietly rearranges them, sometimes weaving thread between distant shelves, sometimes letting a note drift into a different dossier. The process is slow and patient. If you hand a small tagged note to that librarian before sleep, a word of gratitude, a single fact you want to remember, a question you want the brain to revisit, you participate in a gentle collaboration. You are not forcing the librarian, you are offering a bookmark. There is a fascinating interplay between emotion and memory that can be harnessed without effort.
Vivid emotions stick better in memory, which is why strong anxiety can etch itself into nights. But the reverse is also true. Calming emotions can strengthen certain recall. A brief, habitual pairing of a small calming sensation, a warm washcloth at the brow, a particular song, a soft phrase whispered, with the moment before sleep may increase the probability that quiet, restful memories are what linger. The goal is not to manipulate memory, but to bias the evening toward gentleness.
Let your breath be a lantern now, with a slight elongation of the exhale. Inhale softly for 3 counts, exhale for 6. Picture each exhale as a sweep of a broom, not a force, but a smoothing gesture that levels the day's roughness. Do this twice. Notice the eyes relaxing, the jaw releasing, the tiny muscles behind the ears draining tension. We come now to some of the more surprising cognitive findings that, when reframed, can be consolatory. For instance, there's research showing that people who practice expressing gratitude regularly report better subjective sleep quality. The mechanism may be partly cognitive, gratitude redirects attention away from threat, and partly behavioral, because gratitude often accompanies calm behaviors like reflection. A micro-practice. Before sleep, name 3 small things that were okay today, stated simply and softly. They need not be grand. The kettle whistled, my feet were warm, I smiled at a stranger. Speak them as if to a friend. Let the brain savor each one briefly, then release. A study domain that offers restrained awe is that of embodied cognition. Small bodily adjustments, smiling, standing differently, or breathing deeper, can shift mood. For sleep, you can use this by creating a small physical posture that signals rest, a comfortable support under the knees, an extra pillow under the neck, hands resting on the belly. Each night, returning to the same configuration tells the body and brain that conditions for rest are present. Over time, this repetition becomes a quiet ritual with real psychological power. Now, a breathing visualization that blends sense and suggestion. Inhale with the image of warm light pooling at the center of the chest. Hold for a soft moment. Exhale as if a curtain of shadow lowers gently across the bright edges. As you breathe in, feel the light expand to the shoulders. As you breathe out, imagine it flowing down to the hands and feet until the entire body feels like a vessel warmed by a single small flame. Repeat this 3 times, letting the flame diminish size with each breath until it is a modest ember, steady and content. There is a modest wonder in how attention shapes perception. Change blindness, the idea that large changes can go unnoticed if attention is not focused, reminds us the mind selects its world. For bedtime, this can be a kindness. You don't need to notice every passing worry or detail. Practice a soft redirection of attention toward a single pleasant image, the curl of a blanket, the feel of cotton against skin, the remembered sound of rain on a roof. Give that image a few breaths of priority and watch how other details dim into the background. The brain will follow the lantern you carry. A gentle, curious fact about learning: teaching or verbalizing amplifies memory. This suggests a sleepy ritual. Softly explain one small calming idea to an imagined friend before sleep. Tonight I will allow my body to rest, you might say.
The act of speaking it aloud, even in a whisper, helps it lodge. Imagine the sentence as a pebble dropped into still water. The ripples encourage the pond to settle. Let's take a longer, slow wonder vignette. Picture yourself standing in a long gallery of doors, each door a night you've slept. Some doors are well-traveled and easy to open, others are stiff. Each small nightly ritual is like oil for the hinges. Over months, minor, consistent acts, a scent here, a short breath pattern there, a written line once a week, soften the hinges until opening the door becomes less effortful. The gallery is not a lineup of successes and failures. It is a patient architecture, and every ritual you repeat slides the door a little more smoothly. Allow this image to fill your mind for a few breaths, and notice how the idea of routine becomes something of a friend rather than a chore. There are also neat findings about the benefits of handwriting for clarity. Taking even a single handwritten sentence of gratitude can be more embedding than a typed list. The tactile movement of pen on paper slows thought and gives it shape. If you cannot, or prefer not to, the phone notes will do, but there is an old-world pleasure in the scratch of ink that can quiet a racing mind. Consider a single evening line,
"I rested well for this hour," or "I am allowed to stop now." Write it slowly, with no expectation beyond the motion itself. Now, a brief breathing anchor. Inhale for 4, pause briefly, exhale for 5. As you exhale, let the eyes soften, the eyebrows uncurl, the tongue tip rest behind the front teeth. Imagine the weight of gravity being slightly kinder tonight, tilting everything toward ease. We have sketched many small methods. Now let's gather them into gentle, practical rituals you can carry forward. The aim is simplicity. Choose 1 or 2 that feel manageable, not a dozen. A ritual might include a tiny scent you reserve for night, a 2-minute breathing practice, and a single handwritten sentence 3 times a week. Another ritual might be wearing a particular soft scarf in the evening, or using a fan's low hum as a predictable soundscape. The essential idea is the repetition, the gentle pairing of an external cue with an internal habit. Consider these concrete, low-effort rituals. First, a 2-minute close. Dim lights, sit or lie quietly, breathe slowly with the counts we've used, and name 1 small thing from the day for which you feel grateful. Second, a scent anchor. Pick a mild, personal scent and use it only in the hour before sleep. Third, a tactile anchor. A particular hand placement, 1 hand over the heart, 1 on the belly, repeated nightly. Fourth, a writing anchor. A single handwritten sentence placed in a small notebook 3 times a week. These acts do not promise perfection. They instead build a language of rest that your nervous system learns to read.
Allow a tiny pause now in your mind as you imagine which 2 of these anchors might fit easily into your evening. There is no need to decide. Let the possibility float like a feather. Choose lightly, try for a few nights, and notice the shape of change. We reach softly toward the more astonishing truths that reward quiet awe. One such finding is how the brain processes the experience of waking and sleeping as part of a continuum rather than as rigid states. Measures of brain activity show gradual shifts, loops of activity that flicker on and off. This is why the threshold between wakefulness and sleep often hosts creative insight or curiosity. Treat those moments as gift shelf minutes. If a bright idea arrives, honor it with a gentle, practical action, a single line in a notebook, a short voice memo. By doing so, you send the brain a message. Your nocturnal work is noted, but not urgent. Lucidity in dreams, we mentioned earlier, can be cultivated with light curiosity. There is no need to aim or to force. The simple, soft habit of checking the day for an unusual detail, is the light steady or flickering, can over time encourage metacognitive moments within dreams. Keep the check playful. If curiosity meets you in a dream, greet it kindly and allow it to pass, or gently explore the scene as if admiring a painting. A wonder vignette. Imagine the sleeping brain as a slow potter at the wheel. During the day, life throws lumps of clay onto the wheel. At night, the potter smooths, shapes, and sometimes recycles pieces into a new form. The hands of the potter, networks of neurons linking memory, emotion, and sensation, move with a purpose you cannot always see. Offer a small scrap of kindness to the potter before you sleep, a sentence of forgiveness and acceptance of a small mistake, a note of thanks. These scraps alter the clay's color. For those moments when worry presses, try a brief reconsolidation-friendly exercise. In a calm, neutral voice, not to analyze but to acknowledge, say the worry aloud once, then immediately follow with a small corrective fact or concrete plan you can do tomorrow. The aim is not to solve the entire problem at night, but to reframe the memory with a softer lens. Studies of reconsolidation advise gentle, calm approaches. Heated rumination is not the method here. Keep it brief, and then let the breath take over. Another short breath routine. Inhale for 3, exhale for 5. As you exhale, imagine a slow river erasing footprints along the shore. Let each exhale carry a small step away from rehearsal to rest. Repeat twice. We approach the final sequence, a longer guided visualization to ease you towards sleep. Find yourself comfortable. Allow the room's temperature, the weight of the sheets, the curve of the pillow to be exactly as they are. There is no task beyond noticing.
Begin by imagining a small private garden at twilight.
The garden is not extravagant. It is the size of a single thought, a single small sanctuary behind a familiar door. The path into the garden is soft earth. Each step you take is purposeful and slow. With the first step, feel the ground give a little under your heel, supportive and yielding. Breathe in. The air carries a clean, slightly sweet scent, perhaps the faint green of crushed leaves, perhaps a whisper of lavender. Breathe out. Feel the shoulders loosen. As you walk the path, notice small details without urgency. A low stone bench, a pond with a calm surface, a single lantern hanging from a low branch. The lantern is not bright. It is the size of a held breath, and its light is warm and constant. Draw near the bench and set down any small, burdensome thought on its edge, like folding a paper and leaving it for tomorrow's light. Each folded thought is not erased, it is simply set down. Sense the relief in the shoulders as the bench takes the weight. Sit. Feel the bench beneath you as a steady presence. Place your hands on your lap. The night in the garden is gentle. The sounds are steady and soft. The low rustle of leaves, the distant even chirp of insects, a soft current of air across the pond that might sound, if you listen, like the slow page turn of a book. Let your breath match the rhythm of this quiet world. Inhale for 3. Imagine the lantern's glow expanding slightly. Exhale for 5. Imagine the light shrinking back to a steady flame. Repeat this slow breathing, and with each cycle, imagine the body lowering its alertness by a small fraction. There is no hurry. The garden asks only that you be present. Now bring your attention to the pond. Its surface is smooth and reflective. Toss a single pebble into the water, a pebble you choose for its smallness. Watch how the ripples spread outward, and then ease. Your pebble is your single action of the day done. A note written, a small phone call left for tomorrow, a tiny plan. The water receives it and then returns to mirror-smooth calm. Let the mirror of the pond reflect back your face, but softened. Allow the features to relax as if a sculptor gently smooths the clay. As you sit, imagine the night air brushing against your skin, just enough to remind you of the boundary between inside and out. Notice the contact of the mattress under you, and then expand your sense of body outward as if you have a warm cloak made of slow light. The cloak is cozy and light. It holds you and implies safety. Let it rest over your shoulders. If any thought returns, let it pass like a cloud crossing the moon. Name it briefly if that helps, thought, and watch it float to the edge of the garden where the breeze takes it away. Each naming releases a little more tension. Keep breathing with the lantern in the pond and let your pulse slow. Feel the eyelids soften. Sense the mouth parting slightly as the jaw relaxes. You do not need to force sleep.
Sleep is a patient guest who often prefers an invitation rather than a command. Your job in this garden is simply to prepare the room, dim the light within, offer a small pebble to the pond, adjust the cloak. The rest will come in its own season. As your body settles, imagine a path of soft stones leading from the bench deeper into the garden toward a small gate. You do not need to walk the path now. Know that the gate is there for when sleep is ready. For a few more breaths, enjoy the benign curating of your inner space. If curiosity stirs, greet it kindly and let it pass. The garden knows the difference between inspection and worry. When you feel ready, allow the image of the bench to fade gently. Keep the sensation of the breath as your lantern. Inhale once more with a full, patient feeling. Exhale long and easy, imagining the sound of a distant bell announcing the hour in no rush. Let your body lower into the mattress. Allow the mind to follow the breath and not chase conclusions. Before you slip, a final practical map. Pick one small ritual to try consistently for the next few nights. It could be the 2-minute close, the scent anchor, or the single handwritten note. Keep it simple. Expect variation. Nights will differ, and treat progress with kindness. If sleep continues to resist beyond your typical pattern, consider seeking professional guidance. Persistent sleep difficulty is a compassionate reason to consult a specialist. If this quiet journey has offered something, consider subscribing to the channel for more slow explorations of the mind in sleep. That gentle click helps keep these nights coming for others who might benefit. Now, let the breath be your lantern one last time. Inhale the faint scent you chose for this night. Exhale like a soft shutting of a book. Feel the language of rest settling. The scent, the touch, the posture, the small written line that waits in the notebook. Imagine each element as a stone laid in a path, not a race, but a steady route. As your eyes grow heavier, allow them to close. Let the final image be the lantern's small glow, steady and patient, beneath which you can drift without hurry. Sleep, when it comes, is a patient, imperfect friend. May your night hold gentle repairs and soft discoveries. Rest well, and when you wake, may the world greet you with the same mild light that guided you here.